Laura.
Okay. Welcome everybody. We've got another wonderful session today from the Earth Nouveau team here. I am really excited today because I have been training for a couple of years with Upledger for craniosacral therapy, and I recently moved to the London College of Craniosacral Integration, where I met the two lovely ladies who are joining us today, Sam Lowy and Lisette Villaverde. Now, they're both my tutors. Sam is my personal tutor, which is how I've come in contact with her, and Lisette has just given me a lovely, wonderful hour of distance healing or remote healing or quantum healing, however you'd like to call it. So I did write a little introduction for both of them on the Facebook post, but for those who haven't seen that, perhaps I could hand it over to both of them to introduce themselves. Then I have a number of questions for them that I'd like to put to them, and also we'd like to, obviously, as we usually do, open it up to everybody here to share and co-create and have their wonderful wisdom with us today. So can I hand it over to you, Sam, to just give yourself a brief introduction?
Sure. Thanks, Laura. I feel like you've done quite a good introduction already, but hi, I'm Sam. I tutor at the College of Craniosacral Therapy. I've been a craniosacral therapist for about 11 years, and I'm also a homeopath. I've been practicing homeopathy for about 17, 18 years now. So I've got lots of other things that I study, interests in ink and cosmology and the Celtic wheel, which all sort of inform how I work. But yes, we're here tonight. We also, Lisette and I, work doing hands-on craniosacral therapy, but also distance craniosacral therapy. So I think that's something that we'll be talking about a bit this evening. So lovely to meet you all. Thank you.
Yes, it's great to come in very short notice. So Laura just told me about this a little over an hour ago. And I am one of the course managers at the College of Craniosacral Therapy and have been doing that for about 7 years now. So it's a real passion of mine. Like Sam, I've also dipped into other interests like polarity theory, shiatsu, and shamanic studies. And my baby at the moment is a platform called Cranio in the Community, because I just really feel a strong call to service, especially where we have a lot of beautiful holistic skills to be able to bring work to marginalized communities. So, so that's something that Sam is also helping me co-create with at the moment. But yeah, so as Sam said, we are both also teaching on the postgraduate course with doing distance work, or however you want to call it. There's a lot of noise in the background about what to name it, but essentially it's a beautiful way of connecting with people. And yeah, very excited to do as much of a deep dive as we can about everything that makes the distance work possible. So thank you for having us tonight. Oh, Laura, you're muted.
You're on mute, Laura.
Laura, you're muted.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, let's start again. Could anybody lip read any of that? Okay, it was wonderful to have you here. I only connected with Lisette earlier today because I had a distance treatment, which was wonderful. I really enjoyed it, and perhaps we'll talk about that later. One of the things I asked Sam last night when we had a quick chat was what makes the London College of Craniosacral Integration, as it's called, or I think, not therapy, isn't it? What the London College of Craniosacral Therapy, but the Thomas Attlee, who runs the courses, calls it integration. So can you explain the difference, as you did to me last night, the difference between that and biodynamics, and also the Upledger way of dealing with things. What makes Thomas's a little more special and maybe a little more quantum than the others?
Am I answering that? Oh my goodness. Okay, well, my understanding, and Lisette will probably have some extra other words as well to explain, but there are sort of 3 strands to cranial sacral therapy. There's the up-ledger strand, which is considered to be more biomechanical, which means a bit more sort of hands-on. There's the biodynamic, which gives the system a lot more space and is working really with what they call the breath of life moving through the system. So that's got different names according to different systems. So homeopathically, I think we call it the vital force. It's the chi. It's, you know, that there are lots of words to describe that force. So the biodynamic practitioners are connecting very much into that. And when we integrate, the integrative cranial is really bringing those two together and working with all types of cranial sacral therapy, I suppose. And what we're doing with the integrated cranial sacral therapy, or how I understand it, is that we're responding in each moment to what our clients are needing in every second, based on the various tools of our training. So rather than sort of coming from one particular approach, we're responding to the needs of the system of our clients in each moment. But I'd love to hear what Lisette has to say about it.
And I think Sam summed that up lovely. I mean, having said that, I'd say that different schools, different teachers, they all bring in their own individual approaches. But what really sang to me with the idea of outlining the integrated work was the flexibility and the fluidity. And it's not to say that one modality or practice doesn't have that, but it just felt like to be able to explore all of our bodies, our energetic body, our emotional body, as well as you know, the fact that we do talk about the, you know, inherent cosmic forces. You know, to me, that really sang to me as not just looking at the body as a dense physical object. And so again, I'm sure that other schools will also integrate elements of this through their work. It just depends on to which degree. And of course, there are some schools that are focused on how we can, you know, do technical manipulation to the body. Others are much more hands off. And so it was really nice to kind of have this middle ground of being able to respond to what arises. And that feels quite important in terms of really authentic connection.
Yeah.
So Lisette, what's your understanding of the mechanics of the quantum or remote or distance healing? How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, the word quantum in itself means how much, you know, it's talking to a greatness. And whenever we do talk about things in the quantum fields, the way that I see that is that it's just opening up to a world of infinite possibility, essentially. So when we talk about working non-locally or doing distance craniosacral therapy or any kind of distance work, what we're doing is removing the locality of form, but there's still that connection, because the idea of working in this quantum field is that everything is connected and everyone is connected. So for example, with our session today, it was great to put, you know, to have you on the screen in front of me, but we can also do this work just by, you know, having a visualization of a person or even a name. I've done some distance work on people where they've just emailed me and I don't have their voice, their name, anything, but it's just the idea of that we can drop into that space where we're all connected. And I know that you had mentioned something about everyone's kind of been given their homework to read the holographic universe. And there's a lot that we draw upon that, but essentially it's not the idea that we're transmitting or sending information from one person or the other, but it's just really kind of where we can access that space of deep connectivity within ourselves that allows us to kind of form that engagement. And I'm not sure if that's quite clear enough, but again, it's when we go into the quantum field, it feels like it can be so vast, and there's so much out there, but essentially it's just that everything is one, everything is now, and in that we can also play with working with different time fulcrums. We can even work with different time spheres, and again, it's just that recognition that that we're not separate. So I think that was one thing that started to come about with quantum research back in the 1930s, was this idea that actually we're not separate beings. We're all part of this, you know, all part of this ocean or this web that's completely interconnected. So so I think when we start to work with that that principle, it not only affects how we would be able to do, for example, any kind of healing modality work, but it starts to have an impact on how we see the day-to-day, or how we interact, and how we interact with our own thought forms. And for me, it was a real sense of accountability in terms of, you know, the thoughts I was thinking, the emotions I was generating, you know, if anything was annoying me, it was like really starting to really pull back and notice that everything has an impact and a consequence, and that we can use that for the well-being of ourselves and for the world around us.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Well, you're definitely speaking our language on this Zoom, I think. Yeah. Yesterday, Sam, we spoke about integrating different types of cranial sacral therapy, and you also said integrating different types of the self. Can you expand on that for me?
Sure, yeah. So when I was trying to explain how cranial works, what's happening is that the practitioner is engaging in a perceptual way. We're perceiving the system, we're listening, we're there as a calm, centered presence that's there to listen to the system and hear what it wants to say. And in being heard, the system's then able to find some sense of balance. And when we're listening, it could be that the thing that wants to come forward and be heard is a sore knee, or it could be that what wants to be heard is a trauma from earlier in life, or the experience of being born, or the experience of an ancestor. And that can change from moment to moment. So we can be really tuning in and listening to this body and the system, the person's experience on a physical level, on a fascial level. It could be a bone that we're communicating with or listening to, or it could be very much an energetic process that's trying to clear, that's trying to move. Lizette mentioned we could be engaging with emotional fulcrums, emotions that are moving, that have maybe got stuck or that are releasing. So we're really engaging in a very holistic way with people when we're doing cranial work. We're listening to that whole person on every single level, but we're not necessarily, especially with the integrated work, we don't have an intention as a practitioner. We're not there to do, we're not there to fix or to remove or to reorganize from our own sense of what it should look like. We're really engaging with the system's inherent wisdom. So we're there saying hello, welcoming whatever wants to come forward, whatever wants to be seen, whatever wants to be heard, whatever feels unmet in the system, whatever feels like it's stuck in a place of contraction or wants to unwind or release. So we're holding space basically for the system to really engage with its inherent wisdom, so that it can find a way of finding its own balance in that moment, whatever is best for it in that moment. So we're really working very hard to step out of a sense of how it should look, or any sense of judgment, or trying to make it look a certain way. We really need to give the system space to find its best space for itself in each moment. And so there's a lot of trust that needs to come from that, from ourselves, really. And really that's where the healing happens for the person, because that deep trust in ourselves is where we can really start to drop into what's authentic and what's right for us in each moment. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. One more question before I hand it over to anybody else who wants to ask.
yeah.
In what ways does, because mostly we're dealing with trauma release, isn't it? Really, to bring the body into balance. In what ways does trauma release show itself in either hands-on or a distance healing?
Is that I'd say it's individual in
Yeah.
terms of the form it takes, either how the client can feel that emotionally, and how we as practitioners might also feel the kind of the dense sense of that coming through to the system. But with all of this work, it is highly individual in terms of what arises. Sometimes trauma release can look like something quite big, quite expressive, either through the feeling of it coming through the tissues. You kind of get this electric juddery sense of shock that comes through the system. Other times it's much more subtle, but it might actually be the absence of triggers. So I'd been working with somebody who had PTSD, and for throughout the session she'd kind of get this sense of whenever she felt too open or too vulnerable, like she'd be very expressive and jump off the table. And actually the sense of trauma releasing from her system was the absence of that, like the sense of actually a fuller safety. So all of these defense mechanisms weren't present in that space. And I say on the table, I mean it can be distance work, it can be on the actual, when we do our hands-on work, and I'd say that the quality would feel the same either way. You'd still get that juddery sense, you'd still be able to pick up even if we were doing work at a distance. But yeah, I'd say it's and I think it also depends on how old the trauma is, or if it's been a physical impact or a shock, or if it's something that we've downloaded as children or ongoing abuse. It all has it's almost like you have all these different textures or flavors of the kinds of things that we end up storing in our body and finding ways for them to come to the surface. But Sam, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say exactly what you said. It's so individual how it comes through, and it may be, I think, so often with trauma, it's about the fact that whatever is happening got held into the system, hasn't had a voice, hasn't been able to express itself, and has got stuck. And so we're really creating a space where, whether it's a little cell that has held onto something, or an organ, or an emotion, where it can just feel met and feel heard. And so how that manifests is infinite, really, how that happens. And it isn't necessarily just trauma that we're working with as well. It's it can, how the work supports people can happen on so many different levels. I remember a colleague saying, she'd been doing some really deep work with somebody over many months, and then in one session, the session was all about helping her digest a meal where she'd eaten too much food that day, and she was struggling to digest it. It's just what the system needs in each moment, and maybe that's expressing trauma, maybe that is releasing some energy that's just got stuck, and everything's sort of built up, and it just helps things start to flow some more. But yeah, I guess trauma is yeah, it can take so many different shapes and look in so many different ways. But
and the thing I'm getting from, sorry, Liz, go on.
I was just going to say, I think we use that word. There's a large spectrum of what we can consider trauma. And I think we can throw around, I was traumatized by the traffic jam, or this horror film. But it can be things that we might be also unconsciously holding that we don't know that we're responding to. Things, even elements. Somebody was talking to me about, feel like being left in a crib too long when they're children, and you have this kind of all of this anxiety that gets built up in the body that we don't have a language for.
Yeah.
So but like Sam said, the work that we do is a whole spectrum. So whether it's kind of deeply embedded trauma or digesting a sandwich that we ate too fast, you know, it's working with whatever needs to be held at that moment in time.
And I think if I'm understanding you correctly, in fact, there's very little difference in the work between you do, whether from a distance or whether it's actually in the room hands-on, to the results that you're getting.
That's correct. And I would say for me as a practitioner, it still feels just as visceral. So it feels just as much, just as deep as I would. The same sensations as I would be working with the hands-on work would still come to me with the distance work. So, and in fact, sometimes there's some sessions that I've had and other practitioners have reported that they feel that it's almost easier at times to work distantly, because sometimes there isn't the barriers that the client comes bringing in with the form. You know, with them, they might already have their safe space. They wouldn't have had to travel to come in someplace. You know, they can create their own safety in their environment sometimes that they might not necessarily feel in a clinic room. So, you know, despite our best efforts. So I'd say that there really isn't anything different, but it is quite profound to work when we don't have the limitation, I would say, of form.
And in these days of lockdown, I mean, Zoom becomes ever more pertinent, doesn't it? And being able to do that. Well, before we go on any further, we thought we'd have a little break. And Sam, when I first attended the course, Sam did a lovely meditation for us attendees. So I've asked her if she'd like to do something again now for all of us here, because I know we all love these meditations, just to get us a little more in the mode. Are you happy to do that now, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine. If everyone's okay with that, we can, I'll just get myself a bit more comfortable. So yeah, I'll just invite everyone to
Lovely.
Get comfy. The meditation I'm going to do is an Incan meditation that comes from the Q'ero people of the Andes, and they see everything as being made of living energy. So it's very quantum, their perspective on life, on the world, and they have a lot of different energetic practices that they do to make a connection with those universal forces, to feel like they're really in a deep and meaningful reciprocal relationship with them. So I'm just going to do a very simple meditation that is also very kind of goes very deep. So like I say, getting comfortable, maybe taking a few deep breaths, having a little shake, tying out any tension that may be holding. And just also grounding your system. So really being aware of the soles of your feet on the ground. If you can make contact with the ground, that's wonderful. If not, just being aware of the soles of your feet and their natural electromagnetic connection to the earth. And just have a sense of grounding your system. And then with the out breath, really inviting your body to relax, giving it permission to relax now. And as you're relaxing your body, being aware of how it's feeling right now. Being aware of your organs, the glands of your body, the spine, and just invite everything to relax. And really also being aware with gratitude of how hard your body's working right now, of all the living energy that's moving inside your body right now. And you can also bring your awareness to your heart. Just taking a few deep breaths into your heart space. And continuing to invite your body to relax with the out breath. And as you're breathing in, really being aware of that oxygen that you're bringing in from the plants, from the trees, filling your body, bringing all that nourishment to the whole of your body. And as you're breathing out your carbon dioxide, gifting that, making that intention to really gift that to the natural world, to the trees, that real awareness of that sacred exchange that you're in with every breath with the natural environment. And then take your attention to the edges of your body, to your own physical boundary, your skin, your hair, and just notice how it feels to sit and be present with your physical boundary. Your own physical edge. And then you can start to allow your attention to spread out into the space around you, taking your attention into the space around you, into the space of your energy body. And the Incan people, the Carey people, they call the energy body, they refer to it as being a bubble around us. So really bringing your attention to your own bubble. And just noticing how it feels to you. What impressions you receive as you explore with your attention your own bubble. That space around you, maybe have a sense of textures, of colors, a sense of its shape. Just noticing how it feels to you. And then we're going to take our attention to the tops of our bubbles, to the space. So our bubble extends about an arm's length around us, to the either side, above, below, in front of us, behind us. So taking your attention above your head to the top of your bubble. And with our attention, with our intention and our imagination, we're going to open the tops of our bubbles. And we're going to invite the finest living energy of the universe to come down into the tops of our bubbles. So really connecting with the finest living energy of the universe, the finest living energy that is being emitted and created by the solar system, the stars, the moon, the sun, the oceans, the mountains, trees, by all of nature, all around us at all times. So really drawing that finest living energy into the top of your bubble and bringing it down into your body, into your head, and allowing your cells to soak it up, to really absorb that finest living energy, drawing it into your body, drinking it in. They call it nectar. It's like nectar. So imagine that you're a hummingbird drinking nectar from a flower and drawing that finest living energy into your brain, down your spine, allowing it to flow into your lungs, into your heart, filling up all your organs, filling up your belly, your pelvis, filling your legs, your arms, your hands, and just drinking that in. This is our birthright. We can drink in as much of this energy as we want, whenever we need. So really drawing it into every part of your body. And then you can start to fill up your bubble with this finest living energy. So again, just keeping drinking in this nectar from the universe, this universal nectar that we can draw from, and drinking it into your bubble, drinking it into your body and soaking it up, filling the whole of your bubble so that you find yourself immersed in this finest living energy and immersed in this bubble of finest living energy. And then what we're going to do is take our attention to the bottom of our bubbles, going down into the earth. And we're going to use our intention and our imagination to open the bottom of our bubbles and allow the finest living energy that we're still drinking down from above to wash out of our bodies and out of our bubbles anything that we don't need right now, anything that feels heavy, anything that doesn't feel like it belongs to us right now, that's in our system, in our bodies, in our bubble, washing that down into the earth. And we're gifting that heavy energy, we call it heavy energy that we just don't need, gifting that to Mother Earth and letting her soak that up, letting her transmute it, compost that energy. And it's gifting it to her. So washing out anything you don't need, and it may be emotions, it may be old stories that just aren't serving you anymore. So really connecting with that snake medicine, that shedding of skins that we don't need anymore, and just allowing them to release down into the earth, washing through our bubbles, washing off the top of your bubble, the surface of your bubble, washing through within your bubble and washing through your body, releasing into the earth anything you don't need. And then when you're ready, you can start to draw up and receive from the earth the finest living energy of the earth, drawing that up from the bottom of your bubble, through the bottom of your bubble, up into your own legs, into your feet, drawing it up into your body, and again drinking it up into every cell, drinking it up through your legs, through your pelvis, through the organs of your pelvis and your belly, really noticing how that earth energy feels, how different it is from the energy from above as you continue drinking it up, feeling that strong, nurturing energy of the earth, described as being like mother's milk, coming up into your legs, into your pelvis, into your belly, into your heart, and allowing it to mix in your heart, to dance in your heart with the energy from above, filling up your lungs, filling up your head, your brain, allowing that earth energy to bathe your brain, releasing out anything you don't need back into the earth as you do so if you need to. But really bathing your spinal cord, your brain with that grounding, strong earth energy, that nourishing, nurturing earth energy, and filling up again your whole bubble with the earth energy, feeling the difference in quality to the energy from above and letting it dance with the energy from above in your body and in your bubble. And as we continue to draw up that earth energy, we're going to build a column of energy up from our hearts using the earth energy, and we're going to send this column of earth energy, up from our hearts, up through the tops of our heads and up through the tops of our bubbles, up into the cosmos, sending energy back up into the cosmos and giving thanks for the energy that we've received before. And just sending that energy up and feeling that energy, that column of energy, also nutrifying, nourishing your own body, your own bubble, but also giving thanks and sending love back up to the cosmos. And then when you're ready, you can start to receive that energy from the cosmos back down, letting it fall back down, drawing it back down into your bubble, washing over your bubble, washing through your bubble, washing through your body. And again, once more, releasing anything that you don't need back into the earth, gifting back to the earth, giving thanks back to the earth, allowing whatever you don't need, whatever feels heavy, whatever stories or feelings, or it might be something visual, washing it into the earth, knowing that the earth will transmute it, will compost it. Keeping filling up with that energy from above, keeping washing out that with that nectar from the universe, from the cosmos. And when you feel like you've washed out everything you don't need, you can, with your intention and your imagination, close the bottom of your bubble, keeping filling up with the energy from above. And when you feel all those spaces that have been created by the releasing into the earth, when you feel that they're being refilled with that energy from above, you can close with your intention and your imagination the top of your bubble. And just seeing how your bubble feels now. Just connecting with it now. Noticing the quality, noticing any perceptions from your bubble now. And then again, bringing your energy back to the edges of your body, your physical boundary of your skin and your hair. And just noticing how that feels. And then bringing your attention back into your body, feeling the living energy moving through your body, moving through your organs, moving through your spine. Just noticing how it's feeling. And bring your attention to your hands, the palms of your hands. Being aware of your shoulders and your arms as well. Just being aware that our arms and our hands are extensions from our heart. And just very gently bring your left hand through your energy field, just sensing through your energy field, and bring it to rest on your heart very, very gently. It's coming very slowly through your own energy field. We move our hands through our energy fields as if we're moving them through water without making a ripple. Just gently coming to rest your hand with a butterfly touch on your center. And you can bring your right hand in just as gently, just as slowly through your energy field, noticing how it feels, noticing any sensations, to rest on your belly. And right now we're going to think of our hands as being more like antennae, more like extra ears, just listening to our heart centers, listening to our bellies. Just noticing where we're holding or not holding, what wants to move, what wants to be seen. Listening from our own hearts through our hands. Being aware of all the different layers of our physical bodies. Skin, fascia, muscle, bone, blood, membrane, all the fluid flowing, glands, and the organs. Just noticing what they want to say to you right now. What they need to feel safe. To feel in connection. To be able to flow and unwind. And just really staying with your sense of your feet on the ground, and with a sense of being connected to the earth through the as you bring your attention down through your body, from your pelvis, down your legs, to the soles of your feet, to that connection with the earth. Just noticing if that changes what you're feeling through your hands right now. And just invite your shoulders to soften a bit more, your belly to relax a bit more. And just see if that changes what you're sensing through your hands right now. So we're going to bring our attention to our grounded presence in the room gently, very gently, just letting our hands melt away from our heart centers and from our bellies, relaxing them onto our laps, coming to an awareness of our sit bones on the chair, our legs, thighs and knees, shins and calves, our ankles and our feet, and that electromagnetic connection to the earth. And just taking a few deep breaths and gently opening your eyes and coming back into the space around you. In your own time, just gently reconnecting with the physical space around you.
Sam,
So
thank you. That was
hopefully people are still awake.
yeah,
Everyone's gone to sleep.
absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll open it up now, guys. I've had enough of listening to me.
Very relaxing. Thank you very much. It was lovely. I can really perceive the vastness now, the space around. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Nice.
Sam. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I've got a question. I'm a Bowen practitioner, so I do a lot of distance with Bowen too. And I like what you said with regards to in a CST, in a distant CST, you're not sending energy, you are connecting. And I always use almost like the bilocation principle, having the client on my bed. I use a bed, working with the hologram of the client, and then I just do the normal thing, which I would normally do. So it's very similar to what you were saying. Now I'm wondering, how do you guys work with time? Space, we know there's no time either. Is there a change when you do a distance, a CST, to a physical one in terms of timing?
There's a couple of elements with time. I just find it so exciting of this idea of being able to transcend what we see as linear time. But my supervisor actually told me that you can do a distance session. You can arrange for it to take place at a certain time, but actually you can do it at any time you want it, and to engage with that. So when she first told me that, some time ago, it just kind of blew my mind a bit. And in some way with CST, we're always embedding the element of different time, what we call time fulcrums. So different patterns that are stuck in certain periods of time in our systems. But again, that is looking at it from a linear perspective. So what's great with opening up ourselves to this idea of all possibilities, or that quantum sense, is that we can bypass that in a way, or at least mentally bypass that, because in a way that it doesn't exist, but we're all in form, and we're all here, and we're all adhering to linear time and space. But I believe it was Lynn McTaggart who may have written about different studies that were performed in terms of groups of individuals actually doing group healing work for certain areas, and then looking at statistics later and seeing that there was a drop, doing a healing session for events that happened in the past, and then kind of seeing that there was a change in statistics around this period of time. I mean, I think you'd have to really go in blindly and not, look at anything before you jump in, and not be pessimistic that that's actually the case. But that was the study that came about, that they were actually able to kind of retroactively influence events or outcomes in the past.
A
So
little bit risky.
yeah. In what way, Matt?
It's entanglement.
Mm,
So you're entangling yourself into that process. Well, I like the idea of, you know, doing the treatments whenever you feel to send the treatment out there. And I imagine that you could actually layer the treatments as well. So if you had somebody who's quite stubborn, not really receiving the energies, then you could probably lay 3 or 4 treatments down and send them all at once to be initiated at the same time in our time space. Beautiful.
I mean, it's interesting, this idea of someone not wanting to receive. I mean, we always work with consent, but yeah, there are times where somebody might not be as open to it. I would see that as just a way of you know, letting their system, as opposed to my intention, kind of guide, you know, at what pace do we meet them. But interesting to reflect on the idea of doing treatments at different times with the idea of it meeting one system. So yeah.
So guys, do you, because what it sounds like to me, it sounds like you you know, you have the very 3-dimensional CST treatments, and it sounds like what you guys are using is the extra senses, you know, the other senses as well. And do you have freedom in that movement? I mean, is it taught to you in a certain rigid way? Or who is the gentleman that we had on that was doing the Dolores Cannon method? I forgot what it was called.
Chris, the quantum healing guy.
Quantum healing, that's right.
Yeah.
And he was restricted to just the modalities that they've been taught. Do you guys have freedom of movement in how you do your session with regards to the extrasensory part of it?
I'd say that when the way that the course is laid out, that there is a clear structure, and especially in the beginning modules, as we're starting to explore our own grounding, our own bodies, and what it is to perceive. I think how we perceive is, again, individual. So that's always, you know, there's always kind of an open door for that. And as our skills, our senses are enhanced as we go along, as we're evolving with the work, then there is a little bit more than kind of freedom to explore all of these elements. And you know, we bring all of ourselves to this work. So however, you know, whatever experiences we have, what other things that we've learned in life, any traumas that we've healed from or haven't, you know, we bring our whole selves. So so I would say that the way the course is structured is that there is kind of a set format that we follow and teach, but then, you know, as people start to, you know, really get into their own sense of grounding, then we kind of open that door up even further. But Sam, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add to that.
Yeah, just in that, it's a good question. And in that, the cranial, I think we've said, you know, we're not channeling energy, we're not sending energy, whether we're in person or not, we're listening. So that, I guess if there's a limitation, the universal forces will come through and do their thing as well, you know, but we're not necessarily actively, that's not our intention when we sit down. So if we were offering cranial sacral therapy, we'd probably want to discuss with a client, if we were planning to do some channeling, you know, as well, how they, you know, that's not necessarily going to work for everybody. So in terms of limitations on how we work, that could be considered to be one. I think there's something about the listening as well that just made me, that I was thinking, well, you guys were talking, which is that we're not just listening from one place. When we're training, when we're learning how to listen. So we talk about it like following the system, following where it wants to go, listening from there. So we're also trying to get a sense, we really have to get a sense of our own selves, because we then need to get a sense of how the system wants to be listened to. So one of our old tutors, he had a great PowerPoint where he showed like the different ways we might follow another person. You know, we might be doing it in a kind of bit of a creepy way, or we might be like hiding around a corner, or we might just be following them down the street, you know. So it's really looking at, well, how are we following the system? Does that feel comfortable to the person's system? So and what the system needs and how it wants to be listened to and followed is going to change moment by moment. So it's a bit like a dance when we're in it. We kind of maybe moving in and holding a bit more, and then go, well, okay, you want some space now, and now you want the space to be here, and now you want it to be here, and now you want it to be here again, and then out. And so there's this like dance that's happening as we're engaging with the system. So the rules are to really just try and find a way of perceiving and hearing and finding that stillness within to really hear what has been asked for by the person. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. It does make sense, and it does make sense. And that's where you can see that, you know, you're bringing in a whole different eclectic set of skills into that process, rather than just touch, you know. And one would have to be rather responsible just to be able to do that anyway, you know. One would have to have developed a level of responsibility and skill just to be able to make that work and function, really. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, and which is why it does translate for me to distance, you know, because we're doing that when we're hands-on, we're perceiving and we're listening from that very deep place, and we are able to do that, you know. We can do that from a distance as well. Is my experience. Yeah.
So you have, sorry, Laura.
No, I was going to say, Martine, you got a question because you're unmuted.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, you know, because I mean, CST is something that's been going on for a long time, right? So people are quite familiar with that now. So adding this additional angle of distance and quantum or holistic or whatever you want to call it, I would assume adds a little bit of difficulty to sell it at times, isn't it? In terms of the levels of awareness of people. And what is your experience with that?
I'd say distance craniosacral therapy and that terminology is they're kind of like two camps, or we say like Marmite, you either love it or you don't. So I think for some people, some practitioners, they find it a real natural progression to the work that they're already engaged with, and others, I think, they might see, yes, it works, but don't call it craniosacral therapy because they feel that kind of takes it out of the scope of, you know, where you want to legitimize a practice or want it to be seen publicly as, you know, on the same level as maybe other more traditional practices that don't have the element of energy in them. You know, so they might feel that it's actually taking it further away from their, you know, their desire to kind of have it be seen in a certain way, and others just don't connect with it. So I think it's very individual in terms of how practitioners receive it, and it's individual as to how clients are also open to it as well. So I would say that I've had some hands-on clients who just love it and actually now prefer it and will see me to do distance work as opposed to the hands-on, which was something that came out of lockdown. Whereas others are kind of saying, look, I'll wait for you to come back into the clinic so we can do some hands-on work. So I think it's just how people's perceptions are with that. And for me, I see that experience is a great teacher. So it's always good to just say, you know, give it a try, because you know, you can use language only so far, but it's really the felt sense that is going to connect with somebody with that. But in terms of the practitioner field, I'd say that again, it's pretty divided. But I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I know how it works for myself, and yeah, and how deep we can take this practice of craniosacral therapy.
Well, I can chip in there because obviously I had my treatment this afternoon with Lizette, and it was interesting. I know you say you don't send energy, but I felt the wave of it, and you told me afterwards that was the wave of us connecting. rather than you sending energy to me. But I had great heat around my body, particularly underneath my body as I lay down. I think I said to you at the time, I caught a glimpse of your face actually in my third eye with my eyes closed. And there were 3 sort of waves of energy where I felt as very much a connection with you as the facilitator. And yeah, I felt, you know, I know it carries on working as well, as with a lot of other treatments do, but I had a great sense of peace, I think was one of the things I said to you afterwards. I felt a great sense of peace. That was particularly evident in that treatment. And this is the first time I've had that. I've had that experience. I've had quantum healing, as they call it, which I find is quite different. Well, also that takes you into more of a past life sort of thing. But yeah, I would certainly say now you said to me you don't send energy. It felt very, very gentle, just like Sam's meditation. It's almost as if you were there touching me very, very gently. And that's also something I've noticed with doing this course, is the lightness of the hands, and that you actually move away from the body when you need to. So you, as Sam says, I love that expression, you dance with the energies of the body. And it really is a feeling thing, isn't it? As Matti was saying, you're using all those other senses, and some we can't even name, isn't it? It's just in a sort of a knowingness of where to go with that energy field, I'm guessing. But yeah, has anybody here had a craniosacral therapy or had a remote craniosacral therapy experience they'd like to share with us?
I've had craniosacral, not a remote one, and I love them. So I really like the approach, but that was not a remote one that I had, and I enjoyed it, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask. You know, what was it, Laura, that actually attracted you to craniosacral? Because I'm also seeing there's Nicola, and she's saying that she's going to start learning craniosacral too. So what actually attracted you guys, you and Nicola, to learning craniosacral?
Nicola, do you want to speak up on this? Maybe she's not there. Are you there, Nicola? Okay.
I'm here, sorry.
Oh, lovely. Okay, wonderful. Go ahead. Go ahead.
For me, working as a hands-on massage therapist, I just noticed over the years that by working with the client gently has equal benefits, if not more benefits than, you know, doing like a deep tissue massage. So yeah, I've just really opened up to working distantly with clients, and getting the feedback has been very positive. So yeah, really looking forward to studying it.
That's fantastic. Are you doing Upledger?
Yes, Upledger next year, and I've just been looking at the CST website in London here as well. So yeah.
Where are you based, Nicola, if I can ask?
Sure, I'm based in Dublin in Ireland.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any colleges over there other than for Upledger, for CST?
As far as I know, just Upledger.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm from Ireland too, Nicola. I think there's somebody who teaches craniosacral out in Clifton in Connemara, and I think there's a college somewhere up around the Midlands as well. I can check that out for you, and I can send you that information. A friend of mine was telling me, because I too have an interest in doing it. I don't know if I will or not, but I've quite a bit on my plate. But I did have a craniosacral session a few times, and I found it very powerful. It's very gentle, but it's very powerful. And I like it. I have to say I do like it. It's something that I'm drawn to do. The first time I had it ever, my head started moving back and over, and I was convinced that the therapist was doing it. So I asked her afterwards, I said, you know, do you mind if I ask you, why were you moving my head back and over all the time? And she said, I wasn't. And I thought, well, you were, because I could feel it going back and over. And she said, no, that's what you were doing, because you were releasing something. And I was amazed at the power of that, and that I was doing that voluntarily without anybody even touching it. All she was doing was holding the back of my head, you know, in her hands. So it's a therapy, or it's a healing modality that intrigues me a lot, actually. So if I do find out, Nicola, if there's anything locally, I'll get a message to you and let you know. It might be handier to do it in Ireland. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks.
Okay.
You know, guys, I think one of the things for me when I look at craniosacral therapy, when you look at just like hands-on massage, you know, it's trying to physically manipulate muscle structure, isn't it? It's trying to really knead it. Whereas craniosacral therapy addresses the fascia, which is something that's really not spoken about at all. And the fascia connects to the heart and to the entire body, the sympathetic, the parasympathetic. I haven't actually had a craniosacral therapy session, but when I do my yoga and I do the Shavasana at the end, I kind of zone into the craniosacral pulse, and times I can create a still point. And what I was amazed by was just by bringing very gently my body to a still point, the effect it has on the fascia. And at some points you can literally feel a twang, 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 and then there'll be something down bottom, and then it will come up here, and I feel my jaw like bubbles in my jaw, and then twang, twang, twang. It's amazing, and you know, that's not from trying to physically, you know, do that. That's just allowing the body to reset its, you know, lymphatic systems and whatnot, and allow the process to happen on its own. It's very, very different to a, you know, hands-on trying to physically with force manipulate the body into some sort of a healing.
Yes.
Yeah, I had craniosacral with Laura. I've had it several times, and I've always had, it's always been really, really good. And I felt various things. One time I felt it made me feel really, I felt almost faint. But another time I felt like I've got a bad hip, and I felt like I had, it was almost like knives or spears were being pulled out of my hip. And yet Laura wasn't doing anything. And I, again, like Matty says, you can feel things move throughout the body. And the other experience I've had, I don't know if it's the same, but I used to have a horse. So I used to work with horses for a while, and we quite often used to use radionics, which is distance healing for horses. I don't know whether that's similar to craniosacral. We used to have to send some hair or mane or tail off to wherever this person was, and then they analysed it. But we had really, really positive results with what they called radionics at that time.
I have no idea what that is. Does anyone here know what that is? Radionics?
Never heard of that before. I know that there were some cranial classes that did specialize in equine care, so that there would be actual trips to visit ranches with horses and doing hands-on work with them. Have been asked to do distance work on people's pets before as well, and that that seems to be just as the same as doing hands-on work with them. So
it is an energy-based system. I can't really explain it very well, but the person sort of basically, I presume, holds or concentrates on whatever you've sent them and tunes into the vibes of the horse and that. And they used to be able to tell us some stunning things which they couldn't possibly have known. Things like, you know, that the horse was kept near to a main road because it was suffering from pollution and things like that, or the sort of behaviour it was exhibiting. They didn't need to know anything about the horse, but they come back to us and tell us various things, and it did work really well.
Yeah, I guess reading the quantum field. Thanks, Sean. You put a couple of things in chat I haven't seen. You said you'd heard of it.
Yeah, I would have said something if I could remember where. It might have been through reading Edgar Casey. I can't remember where I heard of it, but
Okay. Well, if we get Duck, you can always do a dance.
Well, as homework, I could look it up and let Laura know, and she can pass it all on to you if you like.
Thanks, Lynn.
I
Where-
just want to tell you guys, oh, sorry.
No, go for it, Don.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
well, I've been having craniosacral for, I guess, about a year now, a little over a year, almost weekly. And recently, I had a session with Andrew, and he had told me that there's still a trauma from my childhood. There's like 20%, and you know, a healing that I needed to continue to work on. And he suggested that I do. He asked me, "Are you having any somatic releases during the craniosacral?" And no, I wasn't actually. And the next time I went, I just felt a allowance, you know, like it's okay. And I just started releasing like a lot of tears and a lot of places in my body that I just been holding in a form, you know, in a certain little girl form. It felt like, and it just felt like so much let go when I just gave myself permission to be in the moment with the session. And it just feels like it's gone really deep in letting go of stories and images and belief systems and patterns. And it just feels like a lot of it has just come up for to be let go of, not examined or anything, just released. That has been a really big change in my sessions.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. And I think to have had that conversation before can also help to create or stimulate a sense of self-intention, which I think is so important. You know, I always ask the person that I work with, you know, what is it that they want to bring into the session today? And that undoubtedly, you know, becomes woven in, but to be able to, for the client, not the practitioner, you know, for us, it's to put our kind of ego aside or our desire to heal or all of that, you know, out of the way. But it's really, what are you ready for? And when maybe it's also needing to hear yourself say that I want this, you know, I want to release this, or I want to heal this.
Yeah, and you know, in the beginning, Andrew I had heard him say this, take a picture of your face at the beginning of the sessions, and then do like, I think he said 15 sessions. And see how so every time I went, I was taking a picture of my face. And I don't know, I just stopped doing it. And then the expression came, the somatic releases began. And it sort of seems like I stopped making a form that I was looking for, you know, something, and just let it all go. I don't know there's no form I'm looking for. There's nothing particular except love, you know, just like I felt like this is really, and I just wanted to say, you know, like Sam, during your meditation, it just felt like this wonderful mother energy, you know, just like so beautiful, and it's so connecting, you know, between our mother, our divine Mother Earth, and our Father, you know, right here in this expression. It just felt so powerful. I'm really grateful for that. Thank you for that. So I'm somatic again.
Brilliant.
Give yourself permission again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here it comes.
Permission.
Look out.
Well done.
That's it. And I think, you know, that sense of that being our birthright, to be in that connection at any moment, we can make that connection, and we are supposed to, we should know, but we don't know because we haven't learnt it, we haven't been taught it. But there are people, wonderful people on this planet that can remember and that do know, and that are sharing that with us. And you know, their wisdom and then their immense knowledge is just so healing for all of us, really, and for the whole planet as well. When we can start to make those real meaningful, real relationships, like you say, with our original mother and our original father and our all the other relations, you know, it's really real. It's really powerful.
Something we were watching the Netflix The Crown, and I started watching yesterday. I was watching a whole thing of Princess Diana, and it was just like her jumping out of a car and shaking hands and hugging and touching children like this over and over. She touched them like this, you know. And last night when I was doing my inner child meditation, I could, when I looked for my own inner parent, it was her form, and she came forward and she just said, you know, this part where you think I knew what I was doing all that time, I didn't know, just like you don't. This expression of being a beloved person, I didn't feel that in my own life. This feels very intimate to me that I'm sharing this with you. She said, it's you are that too, the one who doesn't believe they are. You're still trying to be something more than what you think you are, but you're already that. We're already that.
More than we've heard, read, or studied.
We are, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
This beautiful thing I saw in her, it's in us, and we are the ones that think we aren't that, but we really are.
Best of the best of the best of the best. That's why we're here.
Yeah. We chose it. It was choice.
Yes.
Choice to be here. It's
Oh,
I
thank you.
like. Go on. Who's got something else to say rather than me?
Thank you for sharing that, Dawn. That was really, really beautiful to hear that. Thank you.
I'll share.
Lovely. Hi, Amy.
Hi. So I heard about craniosacral through Andrew watching. He was talking to someone, and I thought, well, let me try that. I'm always up for trying something. So I go, and I honestly I didn't know what to expect. So I was a little tense, you know, in my neck area. And I don't know, maybe you can answer this question, but is it the spinal fluid that you're manipulating when you do the touch part?
Wouldn't say we're manipulating anything. So we do, I mean,
Or is it, okay.
connecting with cerebral spinal fluid and the kind of this idea of the different tides that we can tap into the body is a part, I would say, of all craniosacral study kind of brings that element in. But I would say that also different practitioners engage with, we all have these kind of different levels within our body. And so they might hone in on a specific one in a different way. So they may have been connecting with the cerebral spinal fluid, which is that it's an extract of blood that's this beautiful kind of golden fluid that our spinal cord is bathed in, and our cerebral cortex is also bathed in.
Asthma.
Yeah. Okay, so then I went back a second time. I probably didn't connect with the practitioner that was doing it, because you guys sound like you're awesome. And I wish I could fly to London and have it done. But so then I heard Andrew talk about this. I think Maddie was saying a sit point that you put on the back of your head. I don't know. Maybe you weren't talking about
The
that.
still point is when the
Still point.
Yeah, the still point is when the craniosacral pulse comes to a stop, and the craniosacral fluid stops flowing, and then the fascia releases.
Okay.
It's the
So
same fluid that's around the pericardium.
okay. So I got one of those because I'm thinking, okay, let me try. He did recommend somebody get that. Well, that was totally much better for me. I had tears coming down. I mean, it opened so much. And here I am just laying on the ground with that sit point on my head. So you know, I don't know. That was my experience, and I'll go back. Maybe I need to go into the city and find someone else.
You don't need to go anywhere because you can have it distantly
Well, yeah. So is
in the
I
comfort of your
could.
own home, Amy.
Oh my God, totally. But I want to
Yeah.
fly to London.
You don't have to
But-
fly.
So a good excuse
You
to come to
Fly
London.
through
I
the
know.
Bonton field.
I need an excuse to go. But you're
Oh,
right.
that's
You're
what
right.
it is.
Yeah. But you're right. Okay, I forgot. Okay, you'll have information on that, right? For that. Okay.
And I wanted
Exciting.
to just speak to something that I think what you've kind of addressed in terms of release, but what Matt defined a little bit more fully when talking about so with our college, and that's another point that I would say sets our college apart, is that we do what's called fascial unwinding. I'm not quite sure if Upledger does that as well, but I know that that most biodynamic schools don't actually go into the unwinding of the fascia because they feel that it's too manipulative. But it actually goes back to what Mary was saying, where she had this experience where she was going into motion and thought the practitioner was doing it, but it was actually her body. So we do work quite deeply with the fascia, which is essentially just a connective tissue that surrounds every single nerve fiber, muscle bundle, and it's actually more innervated than muscles itself. So when we feel pain, it's actually working with releasing that in the fascia. But we also find that the fascia is such a huge carrier of cellular memory. So you can have these kind of big releases that come up when we work on that level that might actually feel like you're back in that original event of whatever it is that you're holding. And then for it to come out, it's not just a release on kind of a mental level where you work through things through the psychologist or emotionally, but actually that felt sense of what's being carried in the cell, in the tissues is gone. So I'd say that that's a really deep piece of work. So it may have been, Amy, that you had tapped into some kind of like beautiful fascial release. And as Matt says, the pericardium, that's the really big layer that's around the heart. And I almost see this as a conductor of our whole fascial system. And when we think of our heart, it's that emotional center, how we connect with other people and how we've received love in our lives as well. So it's a huge place to work. So I just wanted to bring that in because, the three of you had kind of brought that in your own ways. And it is an important part of the work that we do and the training. And we can work this way in a distance as well. That we can invite clients to unwind and really get into that kind of somatic release, even if we're not, physically with them, but to be able to, like you've all said, give permission for the body to tune into those levels and to have those come to the surface. So just wanted to speak to that quite briefly.
Fascia is very misunderstood. It's one of these things that a lot of modern sort of physicians just cast off as connective tissue. It's actually 20% of the body's weight, 20% of our entire body's weight. And especially around the section around the bottom of your back, where most people get back pain, there's actually integrated nerves of the sympathetic and parasympathetic central nervous system within the fascic system itself. So with the biomechanics of the heart and all of the sympathetic, parasympathetic and all that is completely integrated within the fascia itself. And so the fascia is a very, very important part of healing that most of us don't really understand. Most of us, for me, I suffered terrible with back pain at the back, and I've worked so many years on it, just keep chipping away. And it's all come down almost now just to an area at the back of the skull. So one small area of fascia at the back of the skull can affect the entire body and the whole of the dynamics of the way it works.
Yeah.
Lizette could Matty get something like Andrew's recommended, like a still point cushion, for want of a better word, or he suggested 2 tennis balls and a sock.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone remembers that. He said will work just as well. Obviously you have to tie the end of the sock, but then you put them at the back here on your occiput and rest on them. Is that something you two would recommend? Is that how you do your still point?
that was something that was brought up. I don't know if it wasn't through Upledger training. It's not something
Yeah.
that we've brought up on the course, but it has been brought to my attention. And that suboccipital area is really can get really tight, and like Matt's made that connection. You know, we do work with going into the subocciput and bringing some pressure in with our fingertips, and you can actually feel kind of the whole body just woof, you know, just starting to release and drop. There was I think it was a physiologist that I had worked with for a while, and he recommended something called, I think it was called Da Vinci or something like this. It was something you could put, again, just resting the back of your suboccipital area if you wanted to get that physical sense of getting in there. And I don't necessarily think about that in terms of still point, just the more in terms of kind of getting into the suboccipital area, because a lot of things can get brought in there. But it can feel really nice. I don't know about, you know, facilitating emotional tissue releases, but I think just in terms of relieving that tension, it always feels good to have a little bit of pressure put back there. So I don't know, Sam, if you have anything else that comes to mind.
I know you can get like hammocks for the head, you know, little hammocks that you attach. I don't know, I haven't used one, but I know of clients that have used them. So they're supposed to help release that area. But yeah, I mean, in practice, we would be doing a suboccipital release is what we call it, isn't it? In either hands-on or distance. Yeah, it could be
So do you
working
do a
with all those
point
tissues.
at all? Sorry, Sam. Do you do a still point at all? I can't remember for my one weekend, because Upledger, it's a very big part of their training is the still point position with, as we were saying, the occiput, but where the protuberance is, that the head, our theminates is, you know, the thumbs are resting, allow you to rest each side. I mean, it's a particular sort of
CV4
position they do. Yeah.
I have this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that I just started
Yeah.
Googling where I could find. I'll put a link in. I don't have it, but it was what was recommended.
Yeah.
So I'll put that in the chat.
And so when I use this, when I told you this was better than going to the practitioner I went to, but it released my piriformis all the way down, because I can't lay flat on the ground, like on a hard ground. It was like, it went all the way down to the piriformis and released all of that. So it helps me a lot just in that pressure point.
I think this is why it's so important for me that there's that extra element. What you guys are doing is great work, because, you know, the reason why some of these treatments, in my opinion, anyway, my personal opinion, don't reach the heights that I feel they should do is because it's not generally accepted, you know, that these extrasensory kind of capabilities to be real, you know. But really, when you have a practitioner who's just working on the hands-on and the 3D level, for me, that just it doesn't have the same potential as somebody who's using their own energies, their own intuitions, their own kind of you know, their own flavor to do the healing as well.
Can I jump in?
Of course you want.
So I'm also a massage therapist and many multimodality healer. I took a couple different classes in craniosacral therapy, and the understanding I have of it is that it's like we have this cranial sacral pulse where the fluid is always rocking. It takes like 12 seconds for a cycle, and then good craniosacral therapy is kind of like body surfing. Really, the wave is going to do its thing no matter what. But if you like are really on your game and you body surf, you're like catch the wave at exactly the right moment. And then the experience of when you do is there's this acceleration and, you know, flow. And that's the experience of like the craniosacral therapist holding the particular points so that the is, as has been said a couple times in the last hour or so, it's not actual manipulation. It's kind of like a combined effort of getting out of the way so that the combined energy can surf the wave of the craniosacral pulse.
Like allowing the body to come back into its own natural rhythm.
Yeah.
And I'd say that, you know, the idea of, you know, coming back to inherent health and the own, you know, letting the body do its thing. Mike Boxall, who is the late Mike Boxall, who was a craniosacral therapist, had, you know, said, trust the tide. And so there is that element of being able to just follow these rhythms of the body. And besides what you described as the craniosacral rhythm, that 12-second, you know, we can go into kind of deeper senses of like longer tides, deeper tides. However, I mean, the way I see that is it's almost like the foundation and the building blocks of craniosacral therapy, but we're so multi-layered and multi-faceted. There's just so much that we're exploring in any given session. So I think some therapists might really get on with kind of, you know, just following these tides and pulses. And others, you know, again, it's like we all have our entry point and what meets us as individuals and how we meet the system. So somebody might really, you know, get in, you know, have that engagement through the emotional body or the nervous system or, you know, the electromagnetic field. But certainly what you described would be kind of like those building blocks of, you know, how craniosacral therapy came into being, in that sense of being able to feel like that fluidic movement, the motion of bones, that, you know, like dropping into that space. I suppose that kind of also connects to what you're originally asking, Laura, about still points and, you know, where things are stressed in kind of certain practices as opposed to others. We certainly do teach still points, the ability to, you know, tap into that CV4 placement of the hands. But I don't, at least I personally don't see that as kind of the staple of the work. And it's not to do anything to anybody, and it's not for us as practitioners to say, actually, I'm just going to fascially unwind them. You know, it's almost like really needing to listen to hear what is needed. And sometimes the client will come in and say like, oh, I've got a stiff, you know, neck, and can you sort that out? And, you know, your practitioner mind immediately goes, oh yeah, good fascial unwind will sort that out. And actually you get them on the table and you find, oh, there's so much else that needs to be addressed. There's a lot of more, you know, deeply rooted things that might bring up the symptom of this other element. So so it's always like Sam, you know, very gracefully put that dance, you know, that dance and that interaction, and letting the clients, also the client's understanding of their underlying health. Oh, lovely. We have another guest with us come into the practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally echo what Lizette said there. And I think I don't ever sort of consciously do a still point, but I do think that still points happen throughout the treatments. I'm not necessarily tracking them or even necessarily even aware that they're happening. Sometimes I know that they are, but it's not a, oh, now it's still point. It's just the system will find those still points when it needs to and wants to express something. So the body surfing does happen, but there's lots of other things happening as well. And I mean, body surfing is my other favorite thing to do in life, so I definitely love that analogy. And there's definitely the catching the wave, and there's also the bit where the wave sucks you under towards the end and you're tumbled around and thrown all over the place and then maybe spat out on the beach, and you know, that's all happening too. So yeah, on lots of different levels.
I wanted to ask you both about grounding. You know, like, is there anything you do in preparation with your sessions or after and during? You know, how you don't use your own core energy and like that.
This could be a whole like session on its own.
Yeah.
And on our postgraduate course, Sam has done a lovely presentation on grounding, and certainly with the CST work, I mean, that's a huge element. I mean, in fact, that's the most important element that we work on, you know, with people understanding what it means to actually be grounded. And for me, it was coming up to graduation day, and I thought, oh, it means presence. I don't have to imagine that I'm a tree. Actually, like, it just really means being in my core. So I'll give the short answer. I think there's anything that we can, at least for me, to get into my midline and to feel really grounded, tapping into and being sure that I'm able to hold a fulcrum of safety and compassion and non-judgment is kind of, it almost feeds itself, you know, they're regenerative feelings. And so if I feel like I'm projecting too much out there, if I'm really like, you know, especially when I first started, like wanting to make sure that they got better or like wanting to impress the client, I would be so drained because it was just completely ego-led, you know, and even with the best intentions, you know. So I think it's really important for us to see how it is, and it's so individual, how it is that we meet ourselves, you know, internally, to hold that kind of strong internal line. So whatever comes up to us, whatever traumas, we can really hold a strong space for ourselves and for the other person. So it's almost as though the work becomes radiatory because we're just sitting in a strong practitioner fulcrum. And, you know, there's a lot of little rituals we can do before and after to help us connect with that. Always anything involving water afterwards, like a shower, even washing hands, even an energetic sense of a rain shower coming through is useful. But I could really just wax lyrical and hog up all the time. So I'll let Sam give her grounding as well.
Just really that, as you know, grounding is the sort of the first thing we say when we're doing the training. It's like, right, find the earth, find the ground, remember you've got legs and that you're here, and it is really fundamental for the practitioner to have that sense of their own body and being embodied and being grounded. And, you know, if you think about the mirror neurons and the mirroring of, we're there really to hold that safe space, and we're only going to be safe if we're present and we're grounded and we're connected to the earth. And well, you know, again, Lisette talks beautifully on safety. I mean, the safety aspect is everything, and so we're trying to hold a safe space, a tether, so that it's something that's very tethered to the here and now and to the ground, so that the sister and the person can explore wherever it wants to go, whatever it needs to do, knowing that there's this holding space, which is the practitioner. Absolutely. So yeah, we do lots of things to try and facilitate that, and ultimately, certainly through the training, it is practice, and it comes back to that dance, practicing where am I, where are they, where do I need to be. And so it's practice really, as you'd need to do learning a dance or scales and music or whatever. But and afterwards, one of the things that, you know, I study a lot with the metaphysical healer Vernon Frost, and one of the most useful things he's ever taught me, and he's taught me lots of things, is just passing my hand over my energy centers and actively closing them. And I found that to be remarkable, especially with the distance work or with being on Zoom, doing that 3 times and consciously closing my energy centers, and at the same time cutting those threads to whatever it was that I might have been in connection with. Really helps me come back into my body and to feel like I've closed, you know, not closed myself back, but just drawn my energies back into me, so I'm not sort of dancing around in the quantum Zoom field if that's where I've been, or you know, feeling like I'm wandering off with someone else's system. Yeah.
No, Lisette, there's some of the teachings that we have from AB here are non-competition, non-hierarchical order, and equal co-creation. It's three things he says a lot, you know, and I can see your passion with the ethics that you have, and you know, it is those things that get in the way, isn't it? If you're in competition with yourself or with the client, you know, you have to adhere to that. You mustn't any other sort of stepping on the journey of your journey, their journey, and trying to convince them of something that they don't want to be convinced of. All this can put a block and a stop to any form of healing, can't it? It's probably quite similar to what Amy was experiencing when she first went with the practitioner. You know, you can just pick up if a practitioner's not right. Those things, equal co-creation and non-competition, they're the ones really that sing out the loudest to me. I can see your passion about that.
Yeah, I think that's that also, you know, is when we feel that in ourselves, when we feel like we're not in competition or that we're having to prove ourselves in some way, that also creates that nest of safety within, you know, and it's that sense of like really being able to hold yourself in community. So with this Cranial in the Community platform that's been built, you know, a big thing that we, you know, reiterate on all our social media things is community over competition. But I think that also goes for within itself, you know, a way of really creating a sense of being held, that we're holding each other, we're holding ourselves, and that we're not measuring our worth. There's no judgment, there's no expectations. It's just, you know, just be. So yeah.
And even in the deliverance of a healing, you can be in competition just by thinking that you think or feel that you must go a certain way, where the client may guide you in another way. You know, there's so many subtleties of competition that can get in the way.
Yeah. And I think as well, you know, especially when we first start off and we're first trying to find our way with this, you know, and again, it can be with the best intention of like, oh, I just want them to get better, you know, but actually that's going to be led by, you know, the clients being able to meet themselves in their journey of health as well, you know, and people can talk about it in terms of karma or whatever, but I think really it comes from, we can't impose, even with the best intention, even with, you know, kindness and open-heartedness, you know, everyone has their process of evolution, and that's so important to them as well, to be able to not just, you know, get a fix, but actually to really have understanding and dialogue with their own personal journey, with their own personal path. Which is the equal co-creation part.
So, you know, there's in Andrew's teachings, it's very much about, you know, the healer and the healee are the same thing. You know, you're just a facilitator for them to heal themselves. It's just requires that equal co-creation in order for the, you know, the healing to be facilitated. So a client will allow you to heal them to the level that they want to be healed, or that they're ready for. And if you take it further, I suppose that's on you.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can really. I mean, you can try, but I think then you feel the results of that. And yeah, but it's beautiful that you bring that up, and it makes me want to look even further into your world as well. Where you're coming from.
He's a masterful teacher.
I'd like to just comment, because Alan had written something in the chat about CST energy work versus body work, deep tissue massage, as them being complementary healing modalities. And with craniosacral therapy, we actually do, at the end of the course, we do actually learn to go into more visceral contact. So it's not just, I mean, it's always energy, because everything's energy, but we also go into, you know, how it feels to actually like liver unwind, or, you know, going into meeting different organs in different ways that are much more visceral and hands-on. And I find that work quite fascinating as well. And with particular parts of the body where things get really stored, there can be a sense of, you know, really feeling met. But I'd say CST is complementary for any kind of working modality. So it's not that one overrides the other. And I think the big core of craniosacral therapy is that ability to perceive and to engage and connect. So you can bring that into anything you're doing, not even body work, but sometimes when I've been met with really anxious people coming to talk to me in conversation, I make a point to kind of go into my practitioner fulcrum, and you can feel like the energy of the room starting to shift and calm down. So I feel like it's well, at least for me, it's kind of driving a way of life.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I've had a rather noisy grandson this evening, so I've had to keep disappearing, and I might have to again, but either Martina or Mary can take over. But has anyone got any more questions at this stage? Because I think we're getting on for, yeah, we've passed 6:30, so don't know how we're all feeling, whether there's anybody else who'd like to ask anything else. I'm sure we'd love you both to come on again, just, you know, come on and just join our Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, we do it every week, so at 5 o'clock usually. So anytime either of you would like to come on and just, you know, participate when we have another guest, or we do also, we just talk among ourselves. We don't always have guests either. So we open up consciousness expanding topics. So if either of you two would like to come on again, then do. So has anyone got anything else they'd like to say at this juncture? Any other questions for Liz or Lizette or Sam? If not, I'll just say thank you. Wonderful meditation, Sam. I loved it. Thank you, Lizette. Wonderful healing. Sorry, and let's get this right. Wonderful distance craniosacral therapy. Quantum craniosacral therapy. Did not receive healing. No. A shared experience. Sam, do you both want to give us details of how we can get hold of you again? Anyone who? Sam?
Sure. Do you want me to just write, I don't know, put my email in the chat?
Yeah, you can do that. We also put it on the YouTube, don't we, Martina? We put your contact details on the YouTube. Yeah, pop it in the chat where people can get hold of you. And Lizette, if you do that too, that would be lovely.
Yeah,
and it's been a gorgeous evening, so thank you so much for inviting us, and
Thank you.
it's just really
Thank
lovely to
you.
meet you all. It's felt very
much.
cozy, like a little living room hangout.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, you two. And Martina, did you want anything else to say next week?
Oh,
Same.
next week. Now, first of all, thank you very much. Thank you, Laura, for bringing on our two amazing guests here. So it's always great to have new guests and learn about new stuff. Next week, we're gonna be doing just the Earth Nouveau team without having a guest. And I want to do a little Q&A, a bit of feedback session, see how we're doing, what type of subjects you want to talk about in the next couple of sessions, what questions you have, and we just play a little bit with the No Plan next week.
Lovely.
Lovely. Okay.
No
Hope to
plan,
see
plan.
you again.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks ever so much.
Very
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Lizette.
you.
Really lovely.
Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.